In this video, I'm gonna walk you through how to create this Aster zipper pouch. This pouch features a zipper closure on the top. Inside it has 5 slip pockets, 3 smaller pockets on the front and 2 larger pockets on the back. This pattern was inspired by my Aster crossbody purse. This pouch, it's a perfect size to serve as a secure insert to the purse to keep your items organized. This pattern is available in my Etsy store. The link to the pattern is in the description box below. The Etsy listing includes a full supply list, so you're going to be able to just review the supply list when you visit my store to make sure you have all the materials needed to complete the pouch. This pouch doesn't involve much materials. You just need a little bit of vinyl, and if you want to create a nice contrast, you can use a nice printed vinyl. For this pouch, I created it in a way that you can use the less expensive printed vinyls that you can get on Amazon in the sheets that are size 8 by 12 inches. They come in usually a set, so you get different prints and colors in a set of 6 or 10, depends what kind of set you're looking at. But this is a sheet from the set I used for this particular pouch. This video serves as a sewing instructions for the pattern. The pattern doesn't come with the written instructions. You would just refer to this video as your sewing instructions for the pattern. Also, if you would like to purchase this pattern as a discount, the discount code will be available in my Facebook group for 1 week from the premiere of this video. So if you like my patterns and you would like to get the new released pattern at a discount, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and to push the notification bell so you're going to be notified when a new video, a new pattern is released. If you have any comments or questions about this pattern or any supplies that are used in this project, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now, let's get started. To start our project, we're gonna cut all our pattern pieces. Make sure you print the pattern pieces at 100%, and you're gonna have the little 1 by 1 inch square to confirm your measurements. There will be 3 additional cuts cut based on measurements provided in a cut list, and that's going to be the 2 internal pockets and our zipper top. So I'm just going to run through really quick through our cuts and needed supplies. So we're gonna cut out 1 panel from pattern vinyl. That's gonna be panel number 1. Panel number 2, it's gonna be the right side of our front of our pouch, and that's gonna be the solid vinyl. Then you're gonna have panel number 3 that's gonna come in as on fold cut. So you're gonna use the pattern but cut the fabric on fold. So you're gonna get a 1 full size outer back piece, and you're gonna use the same panel to cut your main lining pieces. Then you're gonna have 2 panels to create your inside pockets, 1 zipper. The length of the zipper is provided in a cut list. You need also a zipper pull that it's corresponding with your zipper tape. So I'm using zipper tape number 5, and I'm using a zipper pull number 5 as well. I also have a bag of small rivets to attach my back tag. This is optional, and there's many back tags that are there. If you have a back tag that is metal and have prongs, just refer to the instructions on how to attach the particular back tag that you have. And also I'm gonna be using polyester thread. This is Gutermann Mera 70, and I chose the orange color because most of my back it's orange. And the last small piece, it's just a small piece of vinyl to create our end of our open zipper. So you can use just a piece of vinyl, or if you have the metal zipper end, you can use that instead. All right, to get us started, we're gonna work on creating our front panel. So you're gonna take the panels 1 and 2, place them right sides together and clip along the long straight edge. Now that you have those 2 panels clipped together, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along this edge with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 to 3 stitch length. Now that those 2 front panels are sewn together, you're gonna open the front outer of the back. You're gonna flip it over and you're gonna butterfly the seam. So to make sure that our seams are nice and flat, and to give the front of the back a little embellishment, you're gonna take this panel to the machine and making sure that the seam allowances are flat. Each seam allowance is folded behind the corresponding panel. You're gonna top stitch along the middle seam on both sides with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 4 millimeters stitch length. Now that our front seam is top stitched and the seam allowances are butterfly on the back, we can move on to working on our zipper. You're gonna take your zipper tape and you're gonna square off 1 pair of ends of the zipper. So you want to pinch it and fold the pinch over the zipper tape. When you have that folded, you can secure that with a pin and repeat the same thing on the other side. Making sure that the zipper ends are the same length. When you have those 2 ends pinned, you have 2 options. You can now take it to the machine and just baste those folds on the end of the zipper tape. I would just go not deeper than 1/8 of an inch to baste those folds, or you can use a lighter to melt the tape together. And this way the folds will hold and you're not gonna have to worry about any basting stitches. When you're doing that, just be careful, make sure you're not gonna burn yourself, and also when you are pinching those ends, just make sure it's not too hot for your fingers not to get burned by the melted nylon of the zipper tape. So now that we have our zipper prepped like this, we're gonna work on attaching it to our curved edge. To make it easier and to make sure that our zipper gonna lay nicely after the back is finished, we should clip the edge of the zipper tape. To do that, just measure roughly a zipper tape along the curved edge and about 1/2 inch above the cut on the right side. So that's about where my point is. I'm just gonna start clipping my zipper from that point. Clip it by 1/8 of an inch in. Don't clip it any more than that. And then get yourself some clips and start clipping your zipper. You wanna start your zipper about 1/4 of an inch away from this corner, making sure that the tape is teeth side down. And now you can spread the tape along the curved edge because we have those little clips. When you get to the other end, you want to mark 1/2 inch above this corner on the right side panel on the zipper tape. So we want to take a marking tool and mark 1/2 inch from that point on the zipper tape. We're gonna take this prepare panel with the zipper tape to the machine, and we're gonna baste the zipper with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance onto the main panel. But we want to make sure that where this point is, we're gonna slip the zipper and continue the seam over it to make sure that this end is not going to be sewn into the final seam. After you have the zipper based on the front outer panel, you're gonna make a couple marks. You wanna flatten the zipper and mark where the middle of the zipper tape is, and also you want to transfer the mark where the zipper slips. We want to make sure we have those marks because with the curved edge of the zipper tape, and we want to make sure that we're going to be using exactly the same length of the tape on the back panel. So after we have those marked down, you can split the tape, put the front panel aside. You're gonna take the back zipper panel and you're gonna clip the zipper tape to the curved edge of the back outer panel, making sure you are keeping the same measurements. And also remember that now the folded end will be on the right side of the back, and you can always check on the position using your other panel. So when you place them on the mirror, so this is how they gonna be when they're gonna be zipped up. Now you have the confidence that you are attaching the zipper tape the right way around. So that's just a tip. So now we want to start with the folded end, and yet again we're gonna go 1/4 of an inch above our corner cut. Now you can also make sure you have a middle mark, so you can just fold and pinch the vinyl and attach the midpoint first, and you can clip the tape. Now the tape will be folding down nicely. Then we're gonna measure 1/2 inch from that end. Clip our 1/2 inch mark here, and again clip our tape. Now that we have the zipper tape clipped to the outer back panel, we're gonna take it to the machine and we're gonna baste stitch it along the curved edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, making sure we slip the end tail of the zipper so it's not caught in a seam. The zipper tape is based to our outer back panel. Now to finish up prepping our outer of our back, we can attach our back tag right now if that's something you want to do. I'm gonna just use a generic handmade with love tag and I'm gonna place it about 2.75 inches from the bottom edge, and I'm gonna look at this portion of the outer, as this is gonna be a box corner, so I know that's gonna be eaten up by the boxing of our pouch, so I'm just want to make sure that it's somewhere in the middle of that portion of the fabric. So when you are happy with the placement of your back tag, you can just install it. Mine tag needs rivets to be installed, so I'm just gonna proceed and install my back tag. Now that my back tag is installed, I can take both of my outer panels and just put them aside while I'm working on the lining. So to prep our lining, we will start working on our inside pockets. So you're gonna take the two inside pocket panels and place them right sides together and clip them along the long edge. When you have both panels prepped like this, you're gonna take them to the machine and you're gonna sew only along the long open edges with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3 millimeters stitch length. Then you're gonna turn your panels right side out and press them. Now that you have the panels right side out and pressed, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna top stitch the top of your pocket. I actually like to use the sewn part of the panel for the top of my pocket. I feel like the extra fabric gives the top of the pocket more strength, so I'm gonna use that at the top. So I'm gonna take it to the machine and just top stitch along the seam I just created. So you're gonna repeat that on both panels. You're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along the sewn edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 4 millimeters stitch length. Now that both panels are top stitched, we're gonna attach them to the main lining panels, but first we want to mark our pockets. What I like to do, I like to have 2 larger pockets on one side and 3 smaller pockets on one side. So I'm gonna fold one of the pockets in half and finger press it to create the crease. Put that panel aside and take the second panel and fold it in 3 parts and create the creases this way. So now I have creases marking 3 pockets. You're gonna take one of the main lining panels and you're gonna place the pocket panel in the middle between those 2 cuts. So you want to make sure you have about equal distance between the bottom part of the pocket and the top part of the pocket. Now you can use pins to secure the placement. You're gonna repeat that on the other panel. So you're gonna take your pocket panel, making sure you have equal spaces on the bottom and on the top. You're gonna now attach the panel with pins. You notice that I did not put a pin where my creases are because I'm gonna be sewing in those places. So I don't want to have a pin in my way, because now when we have those panels prepped, we're gonna take them to the machine and we're gonna base the sides, and then we're gonna top stitch the bottom of the pocket. Where the middle crease is, we're gonna go up, back stitch 1 stitch length back and forward 2 or 3 times, and then come back down with another line of stitches that will be 1/8 of an inch away from the first seam. Continue top stitching on the bottom of the pocket and base the other side. On the panel, when we have 3 pockets, we're gonna do the same, but we're gonna create 3 pockets. So you're gonna base stitch the side, top stitch on the bottom, go up to create the dividing seam of the pocket, back stitch on top, going back and forward a couple times, and bring the seam back down with the 1/8 of an inch space between those 2 seam lines. Continue top stitching on the bottom, repeat the same thing with the second pocket, continue top stitching on the bottom and base stitch the sides. So we're gonna be using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 4 millimeters stitch length, and we're gonna be basting, top stitching on the bottom, creating our dividing seam lines, going back on the bottom and base stitch the sides. Now that our lining panels are completed, you can see that I have 3 pockets on this side and 2 larger pockets on this side. We're gonna attach the lining to our outer panels. You're gonna take one of the outer panels, and now you can decide what kind of pockets you want on the back of the pouch. I think I want my 2 bigger pockets, so I'm gonna take the panel with 2 pockets and I'm gonna align the top edge of the panel where the zipper is attached. Start with the middle and just clip along the edge. Make sure you're gonna pull the zipper tail away of the seam. Now you have one panel prepped, we can prep the other one. So you're gonna take your front outer panel, the other lining panel, place them right sides together, and starting from the middle point, we're gonna clip the top edge. When you have both panels prepped like this, you're gonna take them to the machine and you're gonna sew along this full edge with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 or 3.5 stitch length. Make sure that you're paying attention to the tail of the zipper. We don't want it to be caught in the seam. So when you are in the point of the zipper tail, just make sure you are pulling the tail end away of the seam, because we don't want it to be caught in the seam. And you're gonna repeat the same thing on the other panel. You're gonna sew along this edge with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and make sure you are paying attention to the tail of the zipper. Just make sure it's nice and flat on the bottom and it's not gonna be caught in the seam. Now that we have our lining panels attached to the main panels by the zippers, we want to prep our curved edge to be turned right side out. To do that, we're gonna snip our seam allowances. So first you want to snip up to the little corners first. Make sure you're not cutting any stitches, and then continue every 1/2 inch or so, snipping the seam allowance all along the curved edge. Now that you have the seam allowance snipped all along, you're gonna turn the panel right side out. Gonna pull on the zipper, so you're gonna get the nice curved edge. And now you can use clips to secure that in place before we top stitch. So I'm just pulling on both the lining and the outer panel and pulling the zipper up to make sure my seam will be nice and curvy. So you wanna take a look at your seam. Is it looking nice? Does it have a nice curve? I think mine is looking pretty good. I'm gonna repeat that on the other side. Now that you have both panels turned right side out and you have your seam nicely folded, you're gonna take both panels to the machine and you're gonna top stitch only on the curved edge. So you want to make sure you are top stitching from this corner all along the zipper tape up to this corner, and leave those little sides without top stitching. You're gonna repeat the same thing on the back panel. So you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along the curved edge up to those little corners. We're gonna be top stitching with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 4 millimeters stitch length. Now that we have our both front and back panel top stitched, we're gonna connect the bottom outer panels. So you're gonna place your one of the outer panels right side up and then place the other panel right sides together. So you want to make sure you are you have the outer panels right sides together, and you're gonna clip the bottom edge of the panels. And when you have that done, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along this edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3 millimeters stitch length. And then you're gonna repeat what we did on the front panel. So you're gonna open the seam allowances, you're gonna butterfly them, and then top stitch along the seam to make sure that the seam allowances are lying flat on the bottom of our bag. So you're gonna first sew along the edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3 millimeters stitch length, and then you're gonna open the seams and you're gonna top stitch along the seam with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 4 millimeters stitch length. Now that our bottom seam is completed and the seam allowances are nicely butterfly on the back, that's gonna give us a nice flat bottom of the pouch. We can now move on to final assembly of the pouch. So we're gonna start with putting our outer panels together. So you want to make sure that first of all your side seams align, so make sure that you have the side seam nicely aligned and clip that in place, and then you can continue clipping the sides. Do the same thing on the other side, making sure your zipper tails are tucked in and not gonna be caught in a seam. So you wanna align your side seams nicely and continue clipping the side. Now you can do the same with the lining. So you wanna make sure you have the lining panels aligning nicely. Clip the bottom part. Make sure that in the bottom lining you're gonna mark an opening. That is about 5 inches. That opening will be our birding hole. That's how we're gonna turn our project right side out. So just make sure you're not gonna sew that up. When you have all your panels clipped, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew the outer panels with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3 millimeters stitch length. You can double the seams if you like. That means you're gonna run 2 rows of stitches right next to each other. So you're gonna create the first seam at 3/8 of an inch and then one just inside of the seam allowances on the other side, and do the same thing. This way your stitching won't show when you turn the project right side out. With the lining, when you're sewing the lining, increase the seam allowances a little bit going towards the bottom of the lining. This will ensure that the lining is laying nicely inside of the back. So start the seam with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and slightly increase the seam allowance, and then keep the same seam allowance like the end of your seam allowance on the sides on the bottom, and make sure that you're gonna backstitch well on the beginning and end of the birding openings. So when we turn our pouch right side out, we're not gonna unravel those seams. Now that we have our sides and bottom sewn, we're gonna box our corners. So you want to put your hand inside and start with the outer panel. Just open the corners and clip together, aligning the bottom and the side seams. Repeat that on the lining. And when you have all your corners prepped, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew the outer box corners with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3mm stitch length. And you're gonna double the seam, so you're gonna run one seam and one just inside of the seam allowance, and you're gonna repeat that on both outer corners. On the lining panel, you're gonna sew the corners with 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you don't need to double the seam. So just make sure you're gonna backstitch on the beginning and on the end of each seam. Now that the box corners are sewn, we can trim the seam allowances to 1/4 of an inch. And now we can turn our project right side out. Now, if you like to just make sure your seams stays nice and flat here, you can take it to the machine and you can connect the top stitching. Just connect the top stitching from the back to the front and do the same on the other end. So just take it to the machine and connect those two top stitch seams to make sure that the inside seam allowance lies flat inside. Inspect your bag, and if you are happy how it looks and everything else looks good to you, you can pull the lining out and tack on the open edges. It will make the fabric fold inside, so you can finger press it and use clips to clip those two open edges together. Make sure to align them nicely, because we want to use the smallest seam allowance possible to close the opening. So you want to make sure you're going to be catching the both sides of the lining while you're sewing. So now you have your lining prepped, you have your sides prepped. You're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna connect the top stitching on the sides. Make sure the zipper is not caught in a seam. And also you're gonna sew the bottom of your lining with the 1/16 of an inch seam allowance and 3mm stitch length to close the opening in the lining. And make sure you're gonna backstitch on the beginning and on the end of that seam. Now that our back is top stitch and the lining is closed on the bottom, the last thing to do is to finish up our zipper. So we're gonna start with installing our zipper pull. So align the zipper, make sure it's the same length, and install your zipper pull. Close it to make sure the zipper meets in the same space, and mine looks good, so I'm happy with how the zipper is closing. Now we're gonna work on the end of the zipper. I'm gonna create a little zipper tab. So you're gonna take your little zipper tab piece that you cut from the vinyl. You can now trim the zipper. I usually leave about 1.5 to 2 inches. I think I'm gonna do 1.5 inches tail, so I'm just gonna trim the zipper tape. Take my lighter. I want to make sure it's straight, because otherwise my tab will be crooked. So I'm gonna take my lighter and I'm gonna melt the end of the zipper, and using double-sided tape, I'm gonna make sure that my tab fits nicely, it's the correct size. Yeah, it looks good. So now I'm gonna use double-sided tape. And place a little strips along the longer edges. Remove the backing. Fold the little tab as little tackle and wrap the zipper end in it, making sure the sides aligns nicely, and now pinch it. Now the zipper tab stays on the zipper end temporarily. You can all take it to the machine and sew along the edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or you can use rivets to attach the vinyl to the end of the zipper. I'm gonna use rivets. I'm gonna take my marking tool and just mark placement of my rivets. I'm gonna be using a smaller rivet, so I'm gonna be pretty close to the edge, about 1/4 of an inch from the side and from the top edge of the zipper tab. And my zipper tab is attached. Now you can give your back a little bit of a press and your project is completed. The project is now completed. The Aster zipper pouch and insert to my Aster crossbody purse, it's done. It has a top zipper closure. It has 2 slip pockets on the back and 3 smaller slip pockets on the front, and plenty of space inside for other items that you would like to keep secure. If you enjoyed this project and would like to create your own Aster zipper pouch, please make sure to visit my Etsy store and grab a copy of the pattern. The link is in the description box below. Also, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and to give the video a like. That will let me know that you would like me to create more video tutorials. Till the next time.